Um, okay, so welcome everybody. We are in Siman Kuf Gimel 103, which is it's simultaneously very practical because it talks about Noten Tam Lifgam, which is going to be a major heter for kashrut. You're all familiar with them from probably before this year, and it's also got some interesting theoretical issues. And we're going to dig into the theoretical issues also, where my plan is actually to give 2 shiurim on this, Siman. Not because there is a lot of interesting material. I think it could be pushed into one, but I think I don't want to shortchange anything, so I think we'll do 2. So let's start with the Mishnah. And I want to share my screen. Share my screen. This one, yeah. Okay. So this is this. I don't know if you guys noticed. Did you notice that I was changing the short source sheet throughout the week? No, nobody noticed that? Well, I changed it.
Yes, noticed.
You noticed. I added some things. I think I taught this class 2 years ago. I think I did it very differently. Changes all the time. Sorry, just arranging the pictures here. So here is the Mishnah in Avodah Zarah, Daf Samach Hey. I'll read the Mishnah. It says like this. Truth is, I'm going to skip the first part. You guys read it, or maybe I won't skip it, but we're not going to really focus on it. I'll read it, but we won't focus on the first part. Yain nesach shenafal gabei anavim. Yidichan, vehen mutarot. Presumably they're mutar because you can just wash off the grape juice from the hard peel. We talked about this in the summer. V'im hayu mevukaot asurot, and if they were cracked, they're asur. Presumably b'mashu because they're min b'mina. V'nafal al gabei nafal. So if the wine fell al gabei teinim or al gabei tamarim, if they impart flavor to these other things, which are more porous and which are a different type, so therefore we go by noten tam. Okay, that's not really relevant to our case. Really, we're interested in this maase. So maase baitus ben zonen or zonan, I guess. Shehevi grogrot bisfina. So he was bringing across a lot of dried figs. V'nishtabura chavit shel yayin nesech, and a barrel of wine, forbidden wine, broke. V'nafal al gebeihen, and it poured all over these innocent figs. Shal chachamim, he asked the chachamim for a heter. He says, "Can I eat? Can I sell these?" He says, "A whole shipload here." V'hitirum, and they permitted them. Why, and now we're going to say why. Ze'aklal kol shebe hanato benoten tam asur. This is strange how you translate hanato. It's not a normal translation. It means kol shebe hanato. Anything that you enjoy, the flavor that it imparts is asur. In other words, we talked about noten tam as the reason to forbid things, but now we're getting a new limitation on that. Noten tam only forbids if it's bahanato. Kol she'ein bahanato, but noten tam. Anything that doesn't add positive flavor in its giving a flavor, mutar. Kagon chomesh shaval gabei grisim, like chometz that fell on grisim that ruined the grisim because nobody wants, I don't know, oatmeal with vinegar in it. So these figs are okay because the wine imparted a bad flavor. So far, so good. Yeah. Okay. So I'm actually going to skip now in my source sheet.
Rabbi, is hanato enjoy or is it gain benefit from? Because I know
exactly
because I know there have been other places where The idea of hana'ah is any benefit you gain, not necessarily enjoying it, but
Exactly. So
definition.
here, that is exactly the, the unusual thing about the word use in this Mishnah. It normally means hanato means driving benefit from. Here, what it means is that the flavor is a good flavor, as opposed to a damaging flavor or an enjoyable flavor or a beneficial flavor. Hanato, that it benefits us, that it benefits the mixture. That's what it means here, that it's a beneficial, anything that is a beneficial, otherwise it's hard to translate it. How would you translate? It would be hard to translate it any other way. So here it doesn't mean what it normally means. That's what I'm saying.
So this is a very good point. What Asher said and how you responded. I just said it has specific localized meaning here.
Yeah, it's confusing because you're used to the word and it's used in a different way here. But in the Mishnah, the Mishnah can be like that because it's got some kind of history. These are not, these are sayings collected over various times, and various meanings. The words have in different times. Okay, so I'm going to skip now to here, Avodah Zarah, Samech Zayin Amud Bet, the bottom. Minimally, we just have to read these lines, but maybe we'll read it all. Does somebody want to volunteer to read this, Gemara? So, Noam, you want to read?
Yes, I can read.
Thanks.
Just from the Rabbi Shimon or the whole thing?
No, read the whole thing. You don't have to translate it, loosely. You don't have to translate it miduyak.
Okay. V'hatanya echad noten tam lifgam ve'echad noten tam l'shevach asor. Tiva Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon Omer l'shevach asor v'lifgam utar. So it was taught in Breita that regardless of whether the imparting of flavor is to a detriment or whether it's for beneficial purposes, it's forbidden. That new tarovet is forbidden. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Shimon says, if it's l'shevach, then it's forbidden. If it's lifgam, it's mutar.
All right, so stop for a second, right? So here we're seeing the word, first of all, here we're seeing the word shevach used in the way that I was explaining hana'ah before. That's a different, and this is an easier way to understand it. It's interchangeable though, really. But here is like the way we are more comfortable with it. If it's shevach, if it's a beneficial flavor, it's sur. But notice it's a first opinion, Rabbi Meir, who says, there's no such, he basically says doesn't matter whether it's pagum or not pagum, or whether it's pogem or not pogem, whether it causes a pagam or not. It's always going to be usher. We have to ask ourselves, the obvious question, what about the Mishnah? The Mishnah, the way I explained it, at least, seems to be in direct contradiction to Rabbi Meir. So go on. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
My time with Rabbi Meir, Gamar migiule ovdei kochavim. Okay, so Rabbi Meir derives it from the incident with Midian, from the expulsions of the idol worshippers. Gilei ovdei kochabim lav noten tam lifgam hu v'asar rachmana hachanami loshna. So he says that in the case of Gilei ovdei kochabim, it's not a case of noten tam lifgam.
No, it is. It is a case.
Oh, is it not? Is it not a case of noten gam lifgam? But still, the Torah forbids it. Therefore, we see that noten tam lifgam is not actually a thing, even when even in the case of pagum.
Right. So
the Torah wouldn't have to forbid it if it wasn't forbidden.
Right. The Torah says when you collect these booty from the Midian, you have to do purification of their vessels. Why should you? They're obviously sitting around, and they should become pagum. Any flavor that's in them should be kosher. Ella, you must have to say that even pagum flavor is a problem, and therefore will cause them to be not kosher, and therefore you have to purify them. Okay, so that's his proof. So go on.
V'idach, so Rabbi Shimon, how does he respond to this? Rav Huna b'red Rav Chia, Dama Rav Huna b'red Rav Chia, Lo asra Torah el kedera bat yoma, de lo lifgamu. So Rabbi Shimon will respond that, well, the Torah only forbade pots that's a bat yoma.
What does bat yoma mean?
Well, it's machloket.
Well, you can translate it literally.
It's been used within the day.
Yeah.
So those are problematic. But if it's not a ben yomo or bat yoma, then it's fine.
So what? So then what did the Torah mean?
The Torah forbade only those pots from the idolaters that had been used in the past day. But all other things, you wouldn't need there's no reason to forbid them, right, because their tam is pagum.
Right. In other words, it's sort of weird. They didn't really have to do a purification of all the vessels, just some of the vessels. Or maybe we don't know out of suffix, so we have to, in other words, out of suffix, we do them all because we don't know, but really we just have to do the ones that are fresh. Well, that sounds reasonable.
Indeed. V'idach kedera bat yoma nami efshar delo pagma porta. So Rabbi Meir respond that even in kedera bat yoma, it's impossible that it wouldn't become pagum even a little bit.
So so this is interesting. What does that mean? It's pagum a little bit, and therefore
any amount. It's impossible that it wouldn't have become pagum a little bit. So therefore, the Torah
shouldn't have
even the most minute amount.
No, therefore the Torah shouldn't have required us to do anything because it was pagum also. Everything was pagum. Don't tell me it wasn't pagum, bet yomo. So he's also sort of me'ar on the concept of ben yomo. He's saying even a fresh pot is pagum, and therefore the Torah still requires me to do it. So you see that there's no help that pagum will provide. Pagam is not going to be an issue. It's not going to help us. And also his definition of pigma is very slight. Is a different definition. He's saying a small amount I also call pagum. I mean, of course, it doesn't really matter because according to him, pagum is also asur. So he has kind of a sliding scale. He has a kind of, everything is pagum by him, but it actually doesn't really matter because it's all going to be forbidden anyway. Okay, so now the key line.
Rabbi Shimon, my taima, detanya lo tochlu kol nevela lager shibur bisharecha kol haruya lager kiruya nevela she'en riyua lager ena kiruya nevela. So Rabbi Shimon, so how does he know that no ten tam lifgam is a thing? Jars from the Torah, he brings from a Braita from the Torah. Pasuk says you shall not eat a nevela. Here they are using, I think, nevela very loosely. They're using it as any forbidden thing, but you should give it to a stranger in your gates, from which the Braita derives that anything that is fit to be given to a ger, that we can call a nevela, and meaning something forbidden. anything that is not fit to be given to into a ger is not called something forbidden. So something pagum is ostensibly not fit to be given to a ger, therefore it's not forbidden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any comments or questions on that?
I mean, once it's explicated, it seems like normal, like just makes sense.
Well, here's going to be the question that we're going to deal with, which is, how is that can anyone think of why that is not a good source for the Mishnah?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the Mishnah gave us a case, Maaseh, where the wine fell on the dates, on the figs, and it was kosher still, because it was pogem. And this is presumably the whole source for the concept of pagum being mutar is from this pasuk about Devarim. So why is this not a good source?
Because it doesn't have much. Because it doesn't have to do with tarovot.
It does. That's true, right? It
And
doesn't have to do
maybe
with
wine
Torah.
is special.
And also, go on, or somebody else add to that. It doesn't have to do
I
with
thought
Torah.
maybe wine is special.
Well, and also because it is like talking about it
Well,
being
this-
completely ruined in a way that like what's the function of this rule if it's like pagam, but it's like only counts as being mutar when it is inedible, literally inedible.
I think that Lexia has hit the nail on the head. That the wine in the case of the Mishnah was great wine. It was Cabernet Sauvignon. It was the best wine coming from like the nunnery of from the non-kosher vineyards in Italy, and it wasn't pagum at all. So how do we learn that good things, when they mix together, but one of them causes a pagam in the other, is derived from the vela where it was inedible? And presumably, I'll give you one step further. Presumably in the Mishnah, he was asking the rabbis to matter it because he wanted to sell it. In other words, he wanted those dates to use. They weren't pagum to the point where he couldn't sell them. They were.
Now we return to the fuller definition of hana. He wanted hana. He wanted to sell it.
He wanted to sell it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But my point is, my point about the selling is that he's trying to that it's not ra'ui lager. These are very much ra'ui lager. He wants to sell them, and yet we're mattering it based on the fact that something's not ra'ui to a ger. What's not ra'ui to the ger? The two ingredients are ra'uim, and even when they're mixed together, they're not really totally ruined. Just ruined enough that it's mutter, but not ruined enough that it's not fit to give to a ger. So, here, look at Rashi. She'ena ruya leger, she'esricha alma mida'afkim batel isura. You see that once it's pagum. So actually, can anybody see in Rashi? I sort of now see in Rashi an answer to our question. Nobody talks about this Rashi, but what do you think? See an answer? Well, if gim, in other words, he doesn't say pagum. It if gim, because it got pagum, it's but the isser is batel. We learn that pagum is a thing that gets rid of isser. Well,
Do you think that based off of this comment, that would imply like Rashi doesn't do the same derivations other people who think it was like entirely ruined do about like a taravot versus like things that are independent / mostly isser?
I don't know what case you're talking about. You're talking
As
about
in the fact that
Rashba?
like the Rashba and like several other people like pick up on like if I think the Ron too, like if it's being derived from Nevela and there it's totally ruined, how can we say that we can eat it if it's not totally ruined? And they were like, well, that's when it's like entirely Isser or mostly Isser versus when it's like a Tower.
Yeah, well, I want to go into those things.
I know, but I'm saying like, do you think that this is a case of like Rashi thinks this is just the like shot of the Gemara and isn't really trying to paskin here, or that he actually would say, even if it's something like in and of itself, it would only have to be like midifkim, not like totally a pagum.
Well, I was just thinking of it in terms of who is he more like? What I don't know if he's differing from anybody. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you think this is going in any direction?
I mean, I'm not sure, but like if the midifkim, if like we read into that, I don't like. It's hard to tell when Rashi is just like explaining what he thinks is like the pshat of the Gemara versus when he's like doing some form of psak. But like, if that fits in line with the rest of his stuff, I think it would be interesting. Like, there actually are like nafkaminas. Obviously, we don't hold like that, but like there would be a nafkamina for like how bad we think something has to be when it's like entirely or mostly Isser for it to be permitted.
Right. I mean, I'm not sure. I was toying with the idea that maybe there's something in this Rashi more than just the simple pshat here. In other words, he's certainly explaining the simple pshat here. Whether he's really answering our question, maybe I'll take a step back from that. I don't know if he really is. But let's go to see. Yeah, sorry, Joel.
Shani and I got into a big debate about this Rashi at one point about whether or not it's afkim or ifkim, right? Is it the itpael or is it the afel? Where is it like it is making something else pagum? Like you're not talking about the nevi. Rashi is secretly inserting that this nevela gets mixed into something else somehow, right? He's like turned it into a tyrovet, or he's like no, the nevela itself is just pagum, became pagum. And if he's doing the second, right, that's trying to bring us back to our category of this nevela gets into something else and is pagum. Like this guy, like the ger choshav can't mix it into their soup or something like that.
I mean, I think it depends kind of on whether you translate as from when it causes pagam.
Yeah.
Or is it because it causes pagam?
Yeah.
If it's from when, maybe he means as it becomes more pagum, it becomes more mutter.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's similar to the Mishnah, maybe. But I don't know if you can really read it. I don't think you can prove anything. I take it back. I don't think you really prove anything. Let's go, though, to, you know what? I want to go straight, not to 7 in my notes, but to 9. Is it 9? Yeah, the Ran. The Ran is going to deal with this question. In other words, let me rephrase the question back because we got distracted by that Rashi. The question is, how in the world do we learn from the fact that it's totally ruined, it's mutter, of the case of the, what we can call, of the case of the nevela, where if it's totally ruined, then it's not called a nevela anymore. How can we learn from that to the concept of pagum, which is only relative? In other words, one is an absolute pagum. The meat is itself intrinsically pagum. And that's what the Torah says is mutter. How can we learn from that to a case where two very good things that in and of themselves are wonderful, when one meets the other, it causes a deterioration in the one it meets. That's also mutter. How do we learn those two things from the other? So the Ran has an amazing idea, which we'll discuss. Okay, so. I want to see. So he goes from here. So maybe Joel, you want to read? Am I allowed to call on you?
Sure, why not? That's all right. Starting of Avaladain Tzarich Le'ashev.
No, let's start from the beginning.
All right. Udiam Rinan Kol She'ina Chasra Klum Ve'ina Nechelet Mipnei Zeh. Okay. Well, this is going back to the earlier Gemara in Avodah Zarah. So, but but which the two different Girsalot, right? Is it Rish Lakish? Is that the Gemara there?
Actually, wait a second. Wait a second. Maybe I do want to go to the yellow. No, let's read it all. Yeah, let's read it all. Yes,
Okay.
this is going on a Gemara that we didn't see, but we can just go through it quickly. We don't have to explain it.
Okay.
In the beginning, we don't have to explain it. It'll just get us in the right direction.
All right. Piresh Rashi Zal, I think it's Zal here. Might be Zelashano. Delav Dafka Einan Echalet, Ela Kol Shenifkam Atama Mivneze Share. All right. So it doesn't actually have to be like impossible to eat. Right? Rashi says that it's just that it's bad flavor. It's become pagum. Right? And therefore it's permissible. Uraya Ledvarav, Mikdera Sheina Bat Yama, De Karinan Lanu Tentan Lifgam. Right? It's I'll say for the moment more than 24-hour-old pot.
Wait, let me just remind us of that Gemara that it does mention, because that Gemara actually does deal directly with the same case as the Mishnah, where something came into the pot and it was good, but it ruined the pot, just like in the case of the grot. And on that, Rashi says that even if it caused a slight pagam, it's mutter. So Rashi says that explicitly, and the Gemara says it explicitly, and we learned it already from the Mishnah. We were able to see it in the Mishnah, so I didn't need to do that Gemara with you, because in the Mishnah it's also clear. But that's where the Ran starts from that Gemara where it clearly says that that something that falls into something else, even though it's only a little bit pagum, it causes only a partial pigma into the food, it's still going to be mutter. So go on.
All right, Urayla Devar Miktira Sheina Bat Yoma, because if non Bat Yoma Kedera, we say the Karina Lanutan Tam Nifkam, right? We call that Nutan Tam Nifkam, Vaday Sheina Pogemet Atashilko Kach Achuliyene Chelet, right? But it's not like you use a pot that hasn't been used in 5 days, let's say, and it's like the flavor is awful every time you use that pot because it had something cooked in it before. Like that's not
right.
The case.
In other words, we have the best of both worlds. We say that it's pagum and therefore the food is mutter, but really the food tastes fine. We don't taste any pagum in our food. It tastes totally fine. So you see that Rashi must be right because that's what we're doing, kind of proving it from the result. But yeah.
All right. Uvkedera bat yoma nami amrinan iefshar de lo pagma porta alma de befurta de fagam sharu. All right. So we even see that we saw the opinion here of Rebbe Meir that I think it was Rebbe Meir.
We don't paskin like. It's so weird that he mentions this. We don't paskin like this, but he did say those words.
That even like, something that has a little bit of pagam in it, like, the thing has been, sitting for 3 hours or whatever it may be, and that's still called pagum. So. And
it's shari.
And which it isn't actually.
It isn't actually. But
it's like a very weird formulation here.
Right.
So, okay. Urayal Devar od Mishemru Devash, Vekoret Shel Chiltit, Vidomehen, Sheitiru Beperak Ein Mamidim, Mishum Noten Tam Lifgam, Uvadai Sheina Nimsalim Meachilat Adam, Shrekulan Nechlim Hen. Right. Alma Kodeika Porta de Pagam Share. All right.
So let me just tell you that case. That case is where honey, let's say you cook honey with the bees are maybe in there, or the pot is maybe a non-kosher pot, and we matir the honey, and everybody's eating that honey, and yet it's mutter. And why is it mutter? Because the flavor that came from the non-kosher item was a little bit pagum. So he's just proving that from all these different places that yes, really, a little bit of pagum is enough to give a heter to the interaction.
Ve'afalgav denoten tam lifgam nevela gemirela v'chol sheruya leger shmei nevela ve'afal pi shenifgama hatam hainu tama b'mnei shenechelet b'fnei atzma u'lefichach asura ad shetifgam me'achilat ger aval isur tarovet sholchin bo achar netinat tam kol shetamo pogemat ashil kisat mutar l'fi she'enu neten tam data rabba pogemhu. All right, so this is the exact dilemma we have being set up here, right? The nevela is like the ger can't eat it anymore, and we're talking about a small pagum.
Right. So he says
Yeah,
No,
that's
he
eating
says
by
even
itself.
though, I just want to emphasize, he says even though it's not, the source is a case where it's not edible on its own by itself because it's so disgusting. But even though that's the source, that's the halacha. We're going to learn that even though the source is of a case where it's totally pagum, still the halacha is going to be even if it's pigma purta, a little bit of. It's still going to be mutter when it's a little bit of a pagam. Okay, so now we get to the key point.
Right. אבל עדיין צריך ליישב, היכי גמרינן, למי נבלה, right? But we still need to figure out how did we get this derivation from nevela, right? It's still the problem. It's probably venire lefaresh, right? Or venire li, one of the two. Dehainu tama, dema matzinu benevela, shelo asrata Torah, ela keshehiru yaleger, mimne sheochelet nemina isur, afal pi shenifka makatzat. Aval kol she'inem yaleger, kivan she'inem nemina isur, hitirta Torah, ve'afal pi shechal aleha isur mitchila, אף באיסור שנותן טעם בהיתר, כיוון שההיתר נפגם קצת מן האיסור, נמצא שזה שאוכלו אינו נהנה מן האיסור, אלא מצטער עליו, הלכך שרי, אף על פי שחל איסור מתחילה, באותו דבר שנתערב בהיתר.
Okay, that was a mouthful.
Yeah, but his general thing seems to be that it's essentially the same case. It's because
Wait, go back. Let's translate it word for
word. Okay, all right. So the reason that we find it in Nevilah that the Torah only forbade it when it when it's only forbade it when it's still fit for a ger, right? Because the person who eats it is going to get benefit from it, right? This is I think hanat tam that we saw in the Mishnah kind of thing, not hana that the normal use of hana.
In other words, normally you are forbidden to have pleasure from this nevela, but since it's pagum, you're not going to have pleasure from it, and therefore the Torah doesn't forbid. Now, there's the only reason. This is what he said. The only reason the Torah forbids a nevela when it's fit, is because you enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Well, right there, we have to notice the shockingness of what he's saying. He's telling us the reason why the Torah is forbidding something is because it doesn't want you to enjoy forbidden things. That it's not that you can't eat forbidden things, it's that you can't enjoy them. I mean, don't take me too literally there. But the point is, it's the enjoyment per se of the forbidden thing that creates the issur. If you can't enjoy it because it's rotten, then that's not what the Torah is prohibiting. So it's almost like if, I knew somebody who would if he didn't know if his medicine tablets or vitamin tablets were kosher, but he had to take them anyway, he would take like a small thin piece of tissue paper and wrap the medicine and swallow it whole. In other words, on this theory that I'm not having I'm not even tasting it. It's not touching. It's just going down. I'm not touching that casing. I won't taste the slippery feel of the gelatin, capsula. I'll just. The prohibition is to have enjoyment from issur things.
And I appreciate that firmness, by the way. That's very.
The Ron's answer is brilliant because it links the language of the Mishnah up with the case of the nevela. Meaning the Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon dispute seems to be related to the Mishnah, but not explicitly, especially because their language is very different. But this answer basically maps the language of the Mishnah about hanato onto that dispute in a really good way.
You're right. That's a good point. You're noticing the word hana'ah that we started with is really at play here because the Ran is saying it's the hana'ah that you are lacking. That when the heter comes with Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon with the nevela, and so we're going to use that same concept of hana'ah to deal with the case of a tarovet of good things. But wait, let's finish translating.
So, all right, it says, afal pishe hinif kamakasats, right? That even is the case, right? If it's, not the best meat, it's a little bit bad, you're still going to get pleasure from eating this nevela.
Another, right. If you have you bought at the supermarket the day of the expiration date of that hamburger meat. So it's not as good as it was when it was first made. It's a little bit pagum, but it's still going to be usser. You can't go into the supermarket and say, do you have any day-old chicken? And now you can eat non-kosher chicken. It has to be really rotten. And therefore, pigma ktsas is not enough because you're still enjoying it.
But anything that's not fit for a ger, right? So that that person doesn't get, or nobody maybe gets hana from the isur, right? The Torah permitted, right? And even though initially it was asur, right? And
right.
So the same thing for an isur that is giving flavor to something that's permitted, right? If once the permitted thing becomes damaged, even a little bit, right? Because you dropped that isur and that isur got mixed in, right? The person who eats it no longer gets pleasure from it, right? I had really good oatmeal and I dropped some vinegar in it. And even if it's even just a little bit, I'm not getting my enjoyment of my oatmeal anymore. It's gone.
No, I think you can still be getting the enjoyment of the oatmeal, but you're not enjoying the thing that fell in. Like that's not giving you the enjoyment. The isur
you're right. From the vinegar doesn't. Yeah, great, good point. That's a good reading there, Gavni. All right. Rather, it bothers me, right? This is whole time I'm eating the oatmeal, I'm sitting there being upset that I have vinegar in my oatmeal, even though it's only slightly bad oatmeal, it's edible. So therefore it's permissible, right? Even though initially this was, there was an isur in this thing that got mixed in with the heter, like something that was perfectly asur vinegar that got mixed in with perfectly good oatmeal, and it was perfectly good on its own. Nonetheless, for the case when it's a mixture, just a little bit of being pagum is enough for me to be mitzvah over it and not get benefit and not get hana.
Right. In other words, let's think of a case I had very good Cabernet Sauvignon, and then somebody poured in some regular non-kosher wine. It doesn't, I put in a tablespoon or a small glass of non-kosher wine into my jar. So he didn't add anything. He ruined my wine. It's not, now it's not great Cabernet. It's mediocre Cabernet. It's still great to drink. I'll still be happy to drink it. But the net effect, that's the best way I can say it, the net effect of that treif is completely bad. It just contributed badness. And in that way, it's completely bad. So it's like the completely bad when I'm eating the nevela. If it's completely bad, it's mutter. So here the addition is completely bad. So yeah, Yavni is totally correct. I don't nene min ha'isser. The isser actually causes me causes me anguish, causes me suffering. Because the whole concept of kashrut, the whole thing is not to have hana'ah from isser. And here you're not having hana'ah from isser. What hana'ah are you having? Nothing. You'd rather not be there. And now the second part of this Ran is what everybody focuses on, but really the first part we just read is the main point. The second part now is just a halachic nafkamina that comes out from this analysis, right? He made an analysis now that hana'ah is really what is the problem. So go on.
All right. Ulfizek, harov ani lomar, she'im higdil isur midato shel heter, ad shu mashbiach yoter kashe'echlo begodel midato, mimashu pogem, behefsed tamo, asur ad shifshal milechol le'adam kinvela. All right.
So there, I'll translate it with an example. If I poured in a lot of non-kosher wine into my Cabernet, and now it's true my Cabernet doesn't taste as good, but I've got 3 bottles instead of 1, or I've got, 3 bottles, maybe not, but I've got 2 bottles instead of 1. I'm happy, after the 3rd glass, I won't notice anyway the taste. So I'm happy to have more wine. Then I do have hana'ah. I have hana'ah in substance. because I have more substance, even though it's a worse substance. So the addition, I can no longer say was completely bad. The addition was beneficial to me, not financially, but it was beneficial to me in the sense, I mean, maybe financially, but the point is that I'm enjoying that addition. When I drink now more food, I'm happy about that fact. My belly is more full. But that doesn't happen when it's a small amount. So this becomes a very, a sliding scale, really. This becomes very subjective. It could be that I throw away half my bottle of wine. Once I open it, I drink 2 glasses, and then it gets spoiled and I don't want any more, and I throw it away anyway. So now that he ruined it, I don't want any more quantity. But it could be that just at that moment, 2 of my friends come in, and now I'm happy that I have extra wine for them. So it's very subjective to the circumstances, this concept. And it's, but it's, again, it's telling us a new idea. So read on, just going to wrap it up here.
All right. V'chiam rinan bifgam kolshu sage. Right? That's exactly what you were just saying, right? There's like the fight between how much does it destroy the flavor versus how much are you happy that you would just have more now, and whichever one wins is the important thing of those two. Aval.
So wait, let's stop here for a second.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. Is this based? Is there bittul going on here? Do we have a case of bittul? In other words, is the isser still there, and it's just, or is it batel?
I mean, I think the argument is that like when it's pagum, it's like not even, it's not isser. Like it's not really that like the isser is batel in a certain amount. Like they talk about it as if they're like, it's not noten tam, because it's like, on the contrary, it's pogim. Like they talk about it like those are different things, implying that like once it's this like thing that's pogim, it's not even really isser anymore, which is definitely how they talk about it with the nevela, right? Like the thing that they're deriving this from, it's like it doesn't have the shem of nevela on it. If it's like
wait, so why is it not batel?
In these cases,
I mean, are you saying it's? How did you answer my question? Did you say it's batel or not batel?
In the case where there's like a substantive amount of
I'm saying where there's not a substantive amount. I mean, in the case where the Ran matirs, does the Ran consider it a case? Is the Ran applying the rules of bittul?
I'm saying beetle isn't even the right word. No.
Why not?
The Rashba, because for example,
we didn't see the Rashba yet.
Rashba is clearly like thinking. No, but I'm saying just in relation.
Right.
Like, and these other people think that he is applying the idea of beetle growth, right? Like you can see this kind of beyond seems to just be guided by this idea of hana, which is not like generally how we've been like measuring beetle previously. Like you could say that like Nitinat Town is about hana.
In other words, I would say
that's not exactly the way we're talking about it here.
So yes,
that's not the language you've used in other places.
So agreed. In exactly that. In this case, is not. We haven't seen the term of. We haven't seen him use the word bitul because the isser is nikar. It's definitely nikar. Well, bitul is when it's not nikar. Here it's nikar. It's nikar. It's recognizable. It's recognizable because it ruined my food. It's recognizable. So it's not batel. It's there, saying it's there. But it's permitted because the Torah only forbid when you enjoy something, and here you're not enjoying it. That nikarness, what is nikar, is unenjoyable. So there's nothing to do with bittul. Okay, so let's just, I don't know if we should read, let me just read it quickly about right, so I don't want to read the next piece because we're going to read it in the Rashba. So it comes out that it's a very subjective rule according to the Ran. And it doesn't seem to have anything to do with bittul. Let's look at the Rashba. This is source 7 in my sources. This is the Torah Abayit Ta'aruch Bayit Dalet Shar Aleph. Now it's actually quoted pretty much verbatim in the Beit Yosef, but when the Beit Yosef quotes, but I think it's better to read. Sometimes it's better to read it directly in the Beit Yosef. Directly in the main source. Sometimes it's better to read it in the Beit Yosef. Here, I think it's better to read it here. When it's short, sometimes it's better in the Beit Yosef. Do I have another reader, perhaps? Maybe Lexi, you want to read?
Sure. פגם זה שאמרו, לא שפוגם לגמרי, עד שאינו נאכל נחמת פגם זה, אלא אפילו פוגם קצת, שהרי כדרה שאינה בת יומא, אינו פוגמת, אלא מעט, ואפילו הכי אמרו דקדרה שאינה בת יומא, אינו אוסרת. He says this like pagima that we're talking about doesn't have to be something being completely ruined. It just has to be like making it a little worse.
Wait, which
the example of like a day-old pot.
Which case are we talking? Are we talking about the case of the Gemara of the Eino Rui Lager of the complete?
I mean, he.
Or are we talking about?
Doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't specify, but presumably, as in, like at this point, he hasn't clarified that yet. But like, as in presumably here, he's talking about Taravovot, which we like see later. That in the case of the Taravovot, like when it's like tam, when it mamash, we're talking about tam. It doesn't have to be like pogem legam, right? It just has to be like a worse.
Right. Pogem is an interesting word because pogem means what its effect is on the mixture. It's pogem it. How much does it pogem? As opposed to pagum, which means how much is the thing ruined? In other words, if we're talking about, I don't know, the word in Hebrew, to pogem something means it could be a perfectly good thing, but when it reaches that other thing, it's pogem it. So it ruins it. So yeah, I mean, yes, I agree with you. He's not clear 100%, but it's definitely, he's definitely also talking about the case. He's saying pogem ktsat. He's talking about where in its mixture is pogem ktsat.
Right. He's saying that like when this devar ha'isor is like in whatever status it's going to be consumed in, at least as of what he's saying now, it just has to be like making it worse. And again, gives the example of the kedera she'ena bat yoma.
No, but the mixture is not.
Whatever. Yes.
If it's a mixture,
Isser is
the Isser,
pogem the mixture. Such
exactly. You have to say it like that.
Makes it worse. The Isser makes the mixture worse.
Yes, great.
And again, the example of the kedera, which in a bat yoma, the flavor that's in it is presumably not something that's going to be horrifically disgusting. If it's like, like a 25-hour pot is probably not going to like destroy whatever food is cooked in it. And nonetheless, we say that that's mutar. And so he says this is like, substantive support for the idea that it doesn't have to be like pagum legamre. Okay. The im tomar. Valonotin tam lifgam minuvela gamrinan. Gamrinan la vistam nevela realager shma nevela la kashya zahatam hainu lehetera bifnei atzma bihokach ad mifgama legamre ma'achilat ger usra aval isra ta'arvovet sholchin vo achar netinat tam'o kevan shenoten tam lifgam kol shehu betaruvato mutar lefi she'eno noten tam de adaraba pogem. And so he addresses the kushya of like, okay, if we're deriving this from nevela, there it seems to be pretty clear that like it has to be essentially inedible for it to no longer be called nevela. And so how can I then say that in these cases of the taravovot, it only has to be like pogem ktsat? And the answer is that was like for permitting eating the nevela itself, like just this like iser atzma. But when something is in a taravovot, it just needs to be like making it worse, because in that case in general, we go after nitinat tam. as in like the way that we recognize the presence of that isser is essentially via flavor. And if the flavor here is negative, then it's like detracting from that mixture. Keep going. Start.
Just let me emphasize those. Let me just emphasize those words. She'ena noten tam da'adarabba pogem. In other words, it's not even called netinat tam. It's noten tam is what's usher. There is no noten tam. It's a pogem.
Right. That's what I was saying earlier when I was saying how it's not so much beetle as in they say it's just not usher. Right. He's like, this doesn't count as a netinat tam. Like when it's pigima, that just isn't even noten tam that we have to batel. It's just not noten tam.
But I think here he is talking about beetle to some extent, right? It's either it's beetle the hana of the flavor. Either you don't have the flavor at all, or in this case, you don't have any good flavor from it. I think he's starting to go down the beetle path.
Yeah, because look, let me explain what he's saying in my own words. Why is it that a tarovet is usher? Either because its majority is isser, and we go after the rov. But if it's not the majority that it's isser, but it's a minority, how could it still be usser? What concept do we use to create an isser when the majority is a heter? If the majority is heter, it should be heter. Why do we ever say that it's majority, that it's usser when the majority is heter? What rule do we use?
Like beetle barov.
Nitinat tam.
I'm looking for another two-word answer.
When beetle barov, when the majority is heter.
No, but when the majority is heter, I'm asking, why do we aser it? Why would we ever aser something when the majority is heter? You have to be bittul. That bittul means it's mutter. When do we say that things are aser? It's a netinat tam. Well, what's netinat tam based on?
That you're getting hana from it. I mean, essentially.
No, so it's a very important concept. Tam ki'ikar.
Okay.
Tam ki'ikar is the concept. Once you have tam, it's as though you have the ikar there. So it's not, but so the ikar is there. The ikar really is here. So it's not batel. If it's, remember, bittul happens when the thing is not nikar. When there's the tam there, it's nikar all of a sudden. So basically, you have to look at it in like these two ways. There's two ways to make the food usher. Either majority that's physically majority, or there's a tam of the isser here. So what he's saying is, here is a case where the tam of the isser is not here. There's no tam of the food. And therefore, the next step is to say, therefore, it's only going to be usher when there's the majority. And that's the next section.
You're essentially, Rav Nachum, you're essentially saying that the Rashi was making a claim that essentially tam ke car doesn't apply because the tam that you're getting now is actually not like the car of the thing because it's now a tam of pigima and not a tam of shvach.
Right. I'll say it. Yeah, your way of saying is very nice. It may be better than I'm. Yeah, I like the way you're saying it.
Which also works well with the notion that the thing itself doesn't have to be like gross. It just has to be like gross in the way that it mixes in with other things.
So I'll say it in a strong way.
Like dafka, like this tam isn't like ke'ikar.
Right. Let me say it in a strong way. Tam ke'ikar only applies to tam that is beneficial, just like the nevela. In other words, nevela is only usher when it's a beneficial nevela. So tam ki'ikar has the same rule. When the tam that's being added is detrimental, then the rule of tam ki'ikar doesn't apply. So we have no mechanism to forbid this based on tam. The only way we could forbid it is by majority. That's the other mechanism to forbid it, and that's the next words of the Rashba. In other words, as long as there's a majority of kosher, and the tam is detrimental, then the rule of tam kicker doesn't kick in. So essentially, the tam is there, but it's batel. Now, I do want to use the word batel, because that's what we're saying. Tam is it ikar or is it batel? Those are the oppositioning terms, ikar and batel. You know, when you ask, what's the ikar of this food? What bracha should I make on it? Should I say mizonos on my cereal? Is the ikar the milk or is the ikar the cereal? What's batel and what's ikar? So we don't apply the rules of tam ki ikar. So what do we apply? Batel. It's batel. The tam is batel because the tam is detrimental. The other apogem. So the rules of tam ki ikar. That's what I see. And whenever I see noten tam, I translate it as to tam ki ikar, and it works out pretty well. Okay, v'davka. So go on from there.
ודווקא כשנתערב איסור מועט לתוך היתר מרובה, אבל איסור מרובה לתוך היתר מועט, ואפילו מחצה על מחצה, מסתבר שאין אומר בזה נותן טעם לפגם מותר, עד שיפגום לגמרי כנבלה לגר.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Which makes perfect sense, because once its majority is the Isser thing, then we go by the majority. And then the majority is Aser, but so when would it be Mutter? Only if it reached that high level of Pagum that the Ikar has to have. All right, go on.
ואם תאמר, אם כן, כדרש אינה בת יומא, שאינה אוסרת משום דנותן טעם לפגם הוא, ולא אסרה תורה, אלא כדרה בת יומא, עמי, והכולה משערינן, דאי במאי דנפק מיני לא ידינן, אם כן, מאי טעם משערינן, דהלגה רובה דהתרה. So you might have raised the kushya that then how do we have the case where the kedersh in a bat yoma is permitted? Because like in general, in these cases, we measure the entire pot, as we like learned at some other point, because we can't estimate exactly how much was emitted from the pot. And if we're measuring the entire pot, like it's quite possible that the pot will be the rove. And so like how is the food nonetheless permitted? יש לומר כיוון דליקה אלא טעמו של איסור ולא ממשו בכל עניין שרי. לא אסרת לה אלא מחמת טעמו, וטעמו בתרבתו דווקא ושיש בו בהנתו ונותן טעם אסור הלבהתי שרי. So he's like, look, we have this chumrah of measuring with the whole pot because we don't know exactly how much is like emitted from it. But in actuality, like we have no like actual like mamashut of this iser really mixed up in the substance. The way that it is like present in the substance is as flavor. And so if that flavor is like pogim, then like the same rules apply, even though according to like technical standards, if it was l'shevach, we would measure the entire pot.
Excellent. So in other words, you said it beautifully, but in other words, though, the flavor of the pot that we measure as a large volume, in the end of the day, it's still just flavor. It's not mamashut. And the only way we're going to worry about rove is when we're talking about mamashut. That was what we said. Mamashut is the issue. When we're worried about when the rove becomes the isser, then we said, well, the mamashut of it is now the rove, is now the isser. So then I need complete pagum, but complete pagam. But here, no matter how much flavor it is, it's still flavor. Even if we measure the whole pot, it's still just flavor. It never turns into mamashut. And as long as the flavor causes detriment, then we don't have the right to use the concept of tam ki ikar. And therefore it'll be mutter. That's very nice. Very nice. So we'll take a break here, and then we'll see the kasha of the Bedek Habayit, the Ra'ah, on the Rashba. So I just want to, but before we go, I'll just repeat, this is different from the Ran. Okay, I'll stop here. I'm going to start recording. All right, so now that we saw these with the Rashba, and I want to look at the Berech Habayit. I cut up, wait just a second. No, just put it in the teacup and bring it. No, turn off. So I cut up the Berech Habayit a little bit just to make it shorter. I'll read it. Thank you. Oh, more water, all the way. So it says like this. He's talking about the Rashba that we just read. Because the Berech Habayit, this is not the Berech Habayit that's written by the Beit Yosef, it's the Berech Habayit by the Ra'ah that's on the Torah Habayit. And he says like this, Lefi devarav of the Rashba, Pleitat kedei rezu she'eno bat yoma. He says, let's think about that pleita that's in the balua that's in the pot. Pleita again. Pleita kedei rezu she'eno bat yoma, who she'eno oseret she'eno oseret mishum d'tinatam shala eno shavach. That pleita, that exuding of flavor from the kedera, that's eno bat yoma, that's old, the 2-day-old pot, that doesn't forbid, because it's not beneficial to the mixture. Okay, that's what he said. And now his question. Aval mikom makom habela atzmo kumot shehu isur torahu shehare habela atzmo lo nifkam k'dei achilat ger. He says, let's look at that bella, that absorbed flavor in the pot. That absorbed flavor in the pot, what's its status? If I could somehow extract that flavor and put it in a bowl and eat it, could I eat it? No, because it's only pagam purta. So that balua in the wall is not nifsal me'achilat ger. It's just a little bit pagum. So minayin lahatir be'isr Torah b'pachot miken. How can the Rashba permit something that's an isur Torah, because it's not rui lager, that balua? How can he permit it? It's an isur Torah, even if it's mixing into something else, but it's still an isur Torah. And if you should need 60 against it, you should need something against it. You can't just permit it. Dexy, you want to say something?
No, sorry, I did not have a comment on this.
Okay. And then he goes on his answers. Look at his great answer. Havadai itya kehilchata. Says, don't worry, the halacha is correct, but for a different reason. The kaimelan tamo v'lo mamasho midirabanan v'lahachi mekeli. So you see, so he says like this. It's because we hold the tam ki'ikr, tamo v'lo mamasho. That's a code word for tam ki'ikr. So tam ki'ikr is only derabanan, says the Ra'ah. And therefore we can be lenient in this case. In other words, we can do whatever we want. Once the rabbis can say whatever they want once it's derabanan. So the same mouth that forbid can permit. So he holds that this is a proof to his opinion, which is that tam ki'ikr is derabanan. We don't paskin that. We in general paskin tam ki'ikr is deraita. But he is saying, here's a proof. The only reason I can see the materit is if you agree to me that tam ki'ikr is derabanan. Because after all, this tam in that wall is asur d'oraita. He says you can't just say that tam ki'ikr doesn't apply when the tam is bad. It always applies. So either way, the Rashba removed tam ki'ikr by saying it doesn't apply, and the Ra removed it by saying it doesn't exist. So that's very interesting, I think. So we see 3 different answers to how to extend the case of the ger of the Eino Rui Lager to pots or to places where there's a taroid of something that's not ruined. The Ran says if it's if you don't have any benefit from it, if you don't have any enjoyment from it. The Rashba says because Tom Kicker doesn't apply, and the Ra says because they're just lenient because Tom Kicker is Rabbanan. Always Rabbanan.
I mean, I find it hard for the like that the Tom on its the Bella that's on its own, the Balua is itself is Ro'ui Lager. Like it's got to be. I mean, if you somehow were able to extract that flavor, I imagine it'd be pretty bad. Right? Nobody would eat that on its own. You'd like find a way to extract the flavor from the walls of a pot after a couple days. That sounds disgusting to me. I don't know.
Well, that was my words. Don't make fun of the Ra just because I said that. I said that. I'm just trying to explain what he's saying. He's just saying, let's analyze it. He's doing a mental experiment. Mm-hmm. He's saying, well, wait a second. That flavor in the wall, whatever it is, it's only pagum a little bit. You're saying no. I think what you're saying is no. It's not pagum a little bit. It's really fully pagum.
Yeah.
Its effect is small because it's small.
Not we just because, don't know how much it is. Yeah.
Not because it's pagum, but we do have that language of pagam purta.
Well, that was within like a short time though. That was less than that was.
Wait a second, right? But the Ra'ah would also his concept would apply to a different case. Talk about the case of vinegar. A small amount of vinegar goes in. What does the Ra'ah say? The Ra'ah says it's asur d'oraita that vinegar. It's over about zara. How can we mevatel it just because you don't like the flavor? So he says, I'll tell you why. It's mutter because we go after rov. And the whole concept of Tam Ki'ikr is Rabbanan. So it's not just the case of the pot. It's also any case where the thing that's causing the Isser is not pagum itself, like perfectly good vinegar that gets into my greasy. And then the kasha and the answer of the Ra still apply there.
I'm just pretty convinced you can get out of it without saying Tam Ki'ikr Rabbanan. That you could make a claim. The Torah. I mean, this is what we say. The Torah didn't say it was asur unless you get shevach from it, and when it's mixed into something else, where it's not, at least it's not the majority.
I mean, first of all, understand the nicest opinion is the Rashba, the most comfortable opinion, because he doesn't tell us that Tam Ki'ikr is Rabbanan, and he doesn't create like the Ran does this whole new concept of. I mean, I don't know if it's a whole new concept, but we'd have to see if it appears elsewhere. But this concept, which that the only thing that Torah cares about is hana'ah, and that actually eating the Isser is not a problem. It's just the hana'ah from the Isser. I mean, I don't want to take that too far, but the Rans, you could say, well, wait a second. What if I don't have taste buds? What if I, is it? Well, there's other kinds of hana'ah, maybe just filling your body with food.
I think, Joel, I think you can do it without saying like, oh, it would actually would be so disgusting that a Gentile wouldn't eat. I think you could, like, I think the Rashba's approach is more to say like, it's not really the whole volume of the pot. That's the like Bella that's absorbed is not actually that whole volume.
Right. That's the second part. That's the last part of the Rashba. But even before that, his whole explanation, that's just the pot. Don't focus only on the pot. Remember, isn't
that what the Bedek Abite is contesting? No, is he contesting more than that?
I think he's contesting more than that. I just give you a small piece of it, but I think this applies. I see no reason why this doesn't apply the same kasha to. I can say the exact same words and not talk about the walls and just talk about vinegar. I can say why vinegar is asur d'oraita. Why would I matter it just because the flavor isn't good and it's only a little bit bad? Is only a little bit bad.
Oh.
The flavor is only a little bit bad, and it's an isur d'oraita, and I'm gonna matter this vinegar. It only didn't ruin my figs. My figs are really great. They're just not as good as they were before. And yet there's an isur Torah here. How can you mevatel it? He says, because there is no isur Torah here, because it's the Rabbanan. His kasha applies to the whole concept of whenever there's a mixture, I only need a little bit of. I can take two perfectly good things. And as long as it causes a slight pagum, I can matter it.
I think the thing is that his kasha doesn't hold in the Ran system at all, right? The Ran does. If you're willing to accept the Ran system, then it destroys the kasha.
Yeah, because the Ran says there is no Torah prohibition when there's no hana. Ran, right? Exactly. The kasha is only on the Rashba. That's why it is on the Rashba.
Yeah.
Right.
Does he? What is does the Ran know the Ran?
Does the Ran know the Ra'ah? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't check. That's a good question.
Sorry, can I just, this is a different work with the same name as the like additional notes from the Beit Yosef?
Yes, yes. If you have a printed edition, which I do have, of the Torah Tabayit, then printed in it is the Bedek Habayit by the Ra'ah. That's why I wrote Bedek Habayit Ra'ah. It's actually written in the book.
Didn't the Rashba write another book to respond to him, the Shmirat Habayit?
Yeah, yes. That's, I don't think that's printed in mine. Maybe it is. You see, it's only printed, the Ra'ah, you'll turn on many pages of the Bedek Habayit and you won't see any Ra'ah because he didn't have a kasha. It's like the Ravid. Wherever he has a kasha on the Rambam, he speaks up, but you could have pages without any Ra'ah. And then you'll have all of a sudden a comment.
I remember, because like the Beit Yosef's like added notes are also called the Bedek Habayit, is that right?
That's right. When it says Bedek Habayit in the Beit Yosef, that's the Beit Yosef's added notes. Okay, so now there's actually a fourth opinion, kind of, which is the Rosh and the Rosh and the Tosfot. But you know what? Let's go straight to the. I quoted in source 11 here. This Beit Yosef. What did I do here? Yeah, the Ran we read. Here's the Rosh and the Tosfot. The Rosh and the Tosfos are a bit hard to understand. But you know what? They're quoted by the Beit Yosef. I think, you know what? It's hard to decide whether to read them in the Beit Yosef or read them here. Let's read them here. It's always better, you know, it's always more academically sound to read the source as it is. So let's start with the Rosh. Maybe, Yavni, you want to read the Rosh? So it's a hard job, but actually the Rosh is not as hard as the Tosfos, but go for it. But unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. יש אומרים לכל איסורין שהן במשהו, לא אמר בהן דנותן טעם לפגם מותר.
Okay, wait, so stop here for a second.
Yeah, there are those who say that the isurin like chaticha rawai leitkabed or birya that are never batel, you don't have the rule that if they noten tam lifgam, then they're allowed.
So wait, what would we say? Explain before you go any further. What would be the logic of that?
The logic of that would be that it's not a question of batel as you wanted to have it. And,
explain yourself.
No, wait, sorry. Hang on.
In other words, what's the case? The case is I actually prefer to think about Pesach, but you're right. Birya is also a case, but let's think about Pesach. Is there mashu on Pesach? Even though it's the Rabbanan, but we'll ignore that factor of it. But think of this. Is there mashu?
Aren't they?
Yeah, you're right. They're all Rabbanan.
Is Yain Nesef the Rabbanan?
Yain Nesef is yeah, it's probably the Rabbanan.
Okay.
In other words, the whole concept of Mishra Mashahu is the Rabbanan. Otherwise, the Torah concepts is just Rov if you're the Ra'ah, and if you're the Rashba, it's Rov and Tam Kikr. That's interesting. I have to think about that. But I don't encounter much Avodah Zarah. But anyway, so what's the logic of Tam Kikr of a case where it's Mashu Noten Tam Lifgam becomes no longer a heter for me?
It's not an issue of Tom. There's a different reason that it doesn't get nullified. It has chashivut for whatever reason, or in the case of Dvar Shesh Matirin, it's eventually like the rationale is still there, and you can only say no ten Tom Lifgam for something that is incumbent on Tom. But when Tom's not the issue to begin with, why are you even invoking that principle?
Exactly. So exactly. That I like your choice of words of saying hashivut. Exactly. It's hashuv, even if it's pagum, because the rabbi said it's not patel ever. So why they say it's not patel? They're clearly ignoring the concept of flavor, because there's no flavor if it's mashu, and yet they're still ushering it. So, I mean, if it would be, wait a second, let's think about this though. What if the chametz was pagum mi'ikara? It was like rotten, horrible chametz. Would mashu apply then? Would it be usher? Or are we only, so there's two different cases. One case is this or mashu where it's good chametz. It's just pogem
I think anyone would say pagum mi'ikara. Like even Rabbi Meir agrees that's
exactly.
usher.
Well, his mi'ikara there means
mi'ikara.
something else. His mi'ikara means when it's alive. But yeah.
Yes, but like the same general principle, as in like something that's like fundamentally gross in and of itself.
Exactly. So we might say, so I agree with you. I would tend to say, like Lexi, that if it's pagum mi'ikara, then obviously it's just garbage. Garbage in my wine isn't going to ruin my wine. It isn't going to make it us. But if the chametz is, so what are we talking about then? We're talking about chametz. It's good chametz. It's just that it makes my wine taste not so good.
Well, this also would play out in, this does play out in reality of the whole question of I have a chametz pot that got left over before Pesach and I sat there for a week. Does it have tam pagum at this point? And the whole question of can I kasher it?
This would apply. This would imply that if you use a non-Pesach pot on Pesach, assuming it was a day old, well, if it's pagum, it might be mutter. Except we're saying the logic is that if it's not mutter because it's asur mashu, and mashu is a different category than pagum. Pagum is talking about tam, and whenever the rabbi said mashu, they weren't caring about tam. But I'm just trying to say a different thing. I'm trying to say that the case that we should think about is a case of good chametz that falls into good food, but has a bad effect on the food. What is the din there?
Why? How are you limiting it so much?
Because I'm saying it's obvious if the chametz is sour and ruined, that would be obviously mutter. That we're not saying is us. That we're not questioning. That's for sure going to be mutter. It's garbage. So the only thing could be that it's itself good. It is itself good chametz, but it has a pagum effect on the thing that it's missing, and that's our question. Is that also usher? That make sense?
I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure that I see it in the Rosh. It's not obvious to me from what
we didn't see it in the Rosh. I'm just saying logically. I'm just stopping at the first line. I'm just thinking about
I guess that the case that makes sense to me to ask would be like the bug that we talk about is biria, but if it's not 10 times.
Well, the problem with the bug is, why am I talking about chametz? Because the problem with the bug is there's a machloket in the achronim whether a bug can ever be pagum, because it's forbidden even though it's always pagum. Like a bug is sort of always pagum. So how could you ever, or it's always pogem. Nobody wants bugs in their food. So it's always pogem and yet it's forbidden. So is there a heter when it becomes pagum? So in order to not think about that, I just want to talk about chametz and Pesach.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so go on from here. Daha.
אין לך ביטול טעם יותר ממשהו באלף, על פי אפילו הכי אסרו רחמנה, והוא הדין נמי נותן טעם לפגם.
Translate.
And because you don't have, wait, because I think it, because with something, I think this goes back to what no one was saying about like, because it's something you don't have, you definitely don't have time left if it's so little, if it's in so, if it's
in mashu, if it's a mashu,
if it's a mashu, and
right,
even
strange language.
so we have an issur against it, and so similarly, even if it's noten tam lifgam, like we don't care about the flavor at that point.
Right. In other words, if it's noten tam lifgam, we also don't detect the flavor in a good way, and therefore it should be.
And therefore, it should also be asur.
It should also be asur, because just like mashu is asur where there's no flavor, so to tam lifgam where there's like either no flavor, it should also be batel.
Rav
I mean, it
Nachum,
should also be asur. It should also be asur because by the same principle that mashu is asur.
can I put his logic a little bit differently here that I think might be going on? If it's 1 in 1,000, it's not even giving timat pigima, right? At that point,
It's even less than pigima.
Yeah, it's like it's not
Nothing.
even effective. So
it's exactly so. Certainly pigima. So and if that's asur, then certainly pigima, where it is detectable, will be asur. Of course, it's not exactly a great kavachomer because you can say no, where it's nothing, I prohibit it. But where it's bad,
right, you could say that. Right, you could say there's a distinction. Like I think the Ran like uses a good phrasing that not as many others do of like mitzta'er alav, right? Like not only am I not like benefiting from this, I like actively wish this issur was not here, as opposed to like when it's not pogam, it's not like it's like okay, it's just there, right? Like you could imagine someone making that chiluk.
right? Yeah. You could imagine that, yes. But I think what he's saying is not according to the Ran, it's more in the Rashba. In fact, it is the Rashba. Go ahead. Notice he's quoting, sorry to interrupt you. He's quoting basically the Rashba now. We didn't see this Rashba, but it's the Rashba who says this. So go on.
מביאים סעד לדבריהם, מכאן ומפרשין כך, מכלל דבנותן טעם עסקינן, מדשרי שלא כדרך הנאתו, דאי איירי באיסור, משהו אפילו שלא כדרך הנאתו, נמי אסור.
So they bring a support from here. In other words, from what we've been just discussing.
And they reason and they interpret that that the reasoning around the noten tam, how noten noten tam askinan shelo kederech hanato, תהיה הרי באיסור משהו אפילו שלא כדרך הנאתו, נמי אסור. I think it's what we just said, right? About, yeah, it's the same argument that we've been playing out, that that if it doesn't count when it's
if when it's mashu, it's like we said, if mashu is asur when there's no hana'ah,
right,
then pagam is asur when there's no masha, no hana'ah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a good summary.
Velona here. Now he's going to argue on this.
But is that not like the Ran's reasoning?
Well, you're right. It uses the word hana'ah, but he's allowed to use it.
Obviously, he's allowed to use the word hana'ah, but we didn't see this in the Rashba at all. Any of this type of.
No, but it's in the Mishnah, right? So like he's quoting.
Yeah, I guess it's free use.
Yeah, it is the Rashba. He is quoting the Rashba. We didn't see the Rashba, so you're right. The lines can get a little bit blurry, but the Rashba is not talking. The Rashba doesn't come to that conclusion. That's why everybody talks about the last part of the Ran, because the last part of the Ran he clearly says a nafka mina halacha, and that's different. Do I have to value the hana'am more versus the thing, versus the substance? But really the Ran's distinction is the Rashba's distinction is when there's no, if I can put it like this for the Rashba, when there's no Hana'ah from the Tam, then Tam Ki'ikr doesn't apply. So I can use the word Hana'ah, right? When there's no Hana'ah from the Tam, that's what the Rashba said. There's no Hana'ah from the Tam. When it's bad, then Tam Ki'ikr doesn't apply. So it does fit the Rashba. All right, go on.
ולא נהירה דהחמירה בהן תורה, לאוסרם במשהו, מכל מקום יש שם איסור עליהן. And because it's continuing the same word, just because the Torah was machmir on them to asur them even when they're not tasted, so therefore we have the isur on them.
By the way, it's confusing because the Isser Mashu of Tarovit is, I would say, is Rabbanan. So why is he saying Torah here? Because there's an Isser of Birya, independent of Tarovit. Just Birya itself is complicated. There's two things. There's a lav to eat a bug. And a lav, you'd only get whipped if, you ate a kazayit. But on a bug, even if you ate smaller than a kazayit, you'll get punished by the Torah. You'll get whipped by the Torah. So it's an Isser Torah to eat even less than a B'mashu. But the fact that it's not batel in a tarovit, that's the Rabbanan. So it's confusing. That the fact it's not batel, in other words, that's the Rabbanan, because why the Rabbanan? If I drink, according to the Torah, if it's in a tarovit and I drink the tarovit and I don't drink the bug, if the bug happens to be at the bottom of the cup, then I didn't do an Isser. But the rabbis would say, no, you did do an Isser. You did Isser Rabbanan for drinking the tarovit. The tarovit was Isser, even though they didn't drink the bug. So it's confusing a little bit when he says that there's the Hechmira Torah, the Asram, B'mashahu, he's talking about when you eat them in their substance, not in their tarov. But nevertheless, anyway, they're Asr B'mashahu. Mikol Makom, Yesh Shem Isser Alehem. They are called an Isser because the Torah prohibited them. And now he distinguishes to our case. Aval
כשהוא פגום, פקע איסורו, כדלפינן מנבלה. So this is giving the other argument that, but when it's like pagum, then it's like the nevela, that we definitely have an isur on the nevela. But if you wouldn't give it to, if it's so bad that you wouldn't get it, it's not considered a nevela.
No, there's no shame isser on it anymore because it's pagum. And here I notice I wrote the word pagum in bold because it really bothers me, that word. It should be, what should it be?
It should be pogem?
Yeah, it should be pogem. I think he's just being sloppy, but aval kashu pogem, read it that way. Aval kashu pogem, I mean, it's problematic because we're not talking about a case where it's pagum ikar. That's what I gave you that introduction before. I said, what is the case we're talking about? We're not talking about it where it's a case where it's pagum ikara. We're talking about a case where it's good. It's just effect is a net bad effect. So here he's saying about kishahu, he has to be saying about kishahu, but it doesn't make sense then. About kishahu pogem, when it causes a bad effect, paka isuro, it's no longer called an isser, like we learned from nevela, and then that whole complicated thing that nevela can be connected to also good things. You have, it's almost like the Rosh is confusing himself up here, because it makes sense the way he wrote it. Pagum, then obviously if it's pagum, paka isuro. But we weren't talking about that case. We weren't talking about a case where it's ruined and inedible. That wasn't our issue. Of course, that's mutter. When the Rashba said that it's usser, he wasn't talking about that case. He was saying it's that case. He was matir. If the Rosh is arguing on the Rashba, he can only be arguing on the case where it's pogem, but it's essentially good. But so then the question is, does his argument make sense? Without the word being written the way he wrote it. And the Beit Yosef seems to think it's fine. The Beit Yosef seems to think it's fine the way it is. It's all, to me, it's almost like a little bit of a mistake going on here. That the Rosh is being fuzzy. His attack on the Rashba is about something that the Rashba never said. In other words, maybe the Rosh and the Rashba agree. Maybe they both agree that when it's pagum mi'ikara, it's mutter, because paka is suro, like he writes here, paka is suro. But when it's good, but it just causes a bad thing, then that will be asr. And then they wouldn't argue. But the Rosh thinks he's arguing. And let's assume and then, we can say, well, maybe he really did understand the Rashba correctly. And then he's just using the word pagum in an imprecise way. I don't know if everybody's following my issue here. This is just how to learn what he's saying. I'm just trying to, I'm a little bit grappling with, because it makes sense the way he wrote it. If obviously, but I think we can also say that if it's pogem, then paka is suro also. I think we can say that.
Yeah, I think you could say when it is pogem, it itself becomes pagum in the thing, right?
Right, and then paka is suro.
Yeah, as it gets mixed in, the Yisur goes away because.
Yeah, exactly. I think you can read it that way. And I would like to correct it to be pogem, but the Beit Yosef left it also as pagum. I guess that's the way he wrote it. Let's read the last line, Yavni, and
ועוד עיקר טעמה, פריחה הוא דהיכן אסרה תורה במשהו במין במינו, הטעם אפילו אחד באלף אין טעמו נפגם, ולא נתבטל דמינו אינו פוגמו, ואין מבטלו, אבל נותן טעם לפגם מעיקרא שרי כי לא היה בו טעם.
So here is a complicated, this is very hard to understand what he's saying here, but I'll tell you what he's saying here. What he's saying here is the case of Mashahu. He says like this, let's talk about Mashahu. Mashahu is usher, sorry, not Mashahu, Min B'mino. Min B'mino is usher b'Mashahu, whatever, according to some opinions. Maybe the Rosh holds like that. Min B'mino is usher b'Mashahu, and according to some opinions. And there, you wouldn't taste it at all, and it would be usher. But over there, everybody agrees that if it's pagum in min b'mino, then it is mutter. And therefore, you see that pagam can apply even when there is no issue of taste involved, like min b'mino. Now, actually, now that I think about it, now that I'm explaining that, I realize that this really only makes sense. How could you have a case of min b'mino where it's pogem? It couldn't be where it was good. If it was good wine falling into good wine, then how could that be pogem? Well, actually, it could be. Dafka in the case of wine, where it's cheap Cabernet falls into good Cabernet, it's pogem.
That's also only the case where we go batar shma, right, and not batar tama, right?
Ah, that's the case where we go. That's like you're saying like the Ramah who says we go after Tom, and I'm sorry, after name.
Yeah.
And here it's the same name. They're both Cabernet, but they have different tastes, and therefore one could be pogem, the other. Right. So that's so I answered my. I don't know if everyone follows my. I bring up a kasha very quickly, and then I answer it very quickly, but. You might have, whatever. Fine. That's his proof. His second proof is, his second proof is that in the case of min b'mino, where it's usher b'mashahu, everybody agrees that pagum allows it, and yet that was a case where there was no flavor. Min b'mino is a case of no flavor, and yet pagum helps. So therefore, also in any isser mashahu, we can say that pagima helps.
Can I ask an edge case on this?
Yeah.
If you have something on the Rosh, if you have something that is asur b'mashu, noten tam livgam, but it's such a small amount that it like is not noten tam at all, then is it again asur? because it's not noten tam lifgam because it's not noten tam at all, but it does have the whatever qualities of being a birya or being a.
You're saying, I hear what you're saying. You're asking an interesting case. I think it's interesting what you're saying. You're saying, let me repeat it. You're saying, if I have a case of Isser Mashahu, that's Pagum, and then I'm going to say, oh, I'll matter it because it's Pagum. But it's so small that it has no Pagum effect on the thing. It's not really Pagum. Like vinegar, theoretically, should be ruining my wine. But it's such a small amount, it's imperceptible. But it's an Isser Mashahu because it's a Avodah Zarah vinegar. So would I say that it's now becomes Asur again because it's Isser Mashahu? So I'll just say what I heard once from a rabbi. Isser Mashahu is only when there is a Mashahu there. If a drop of chametz falls into the kinneret, the whole kinneret does not become Asur. It's not. It has to be. Even Mashahu has its limits. If it's so small that it has, you can't ruin. I can't.
We just say that's 1 in 60, right? Like that's just the usual.
No.
Usual, not noten tam.
You're saying in your case, if it's 1 in 70, so it's technically imperceptible, and therefore it should be. No, that's exactly our case. That's not an edge case. That's exactly our case, right? And you're saying our case is normally 1 in 40. You're asking 1 in 60, where it's pagum, it's pogem, and it's pogem, and therefore it's Isser Mashahu. Yeah, it's a complicated question. It kind of relates to this pagum. That's maybe why the Rosh was talking about pagum. Then we can understand it better. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. You're saying it's so small. How can you say it's pogem and it's tarovet if it's so small? And yet we're gonna matter it because it's pogem, but it's not pogem. It has no effect. But it has no effect, and we're back to where we were. So we have like a vicious circle.
Or I guess.
Yeah.
Another way.
You guys are too smart. I mean, if you follow that whole logic, you're very smart, and you caused I think it's like Captain Kirk who said to the computer, "Everything I said is a lie," and then the computer, and I'm lying now, and then the computer just started smoking up.
I guess there is a question about whether or not the thing actually has to be pogem, or it's just a question of two different things that are pogem one with each other. Is it
if they were together, right?
Yeah. Is it the types of things that we care about, or is it that the thing actually has that effect?
Right. Yeah.
Well, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that's exactly the question. You could, you could answer it by saying, I could answer you, but I don't know if that's right. I could answer you by saying, yes, if it's the type of thing that would be pogem in a sufficient quantity, then even now, when it's in a small quantity, we're not gonna apply the law of Mashu. That's what that. In other words, if it would be enough vinegar to have an effect, it would be a negative effect. Now it's a tiny drop of vinegar; it has no effect. Do we say it's Mashu? So yes, it is Mashu, but it'll still be mutter because it's pogem, even though it's not pogem. That's kind of the logic that you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that case could be extended too, right? Let's say, I don't know, like sugar in bread is tasty, but a lot of sugar in bread is disgusting, right? That's, like for any ingredient, for any mixture, you can have that of like, if you put too much of something in there, it's pogem, but whether or not that falls into the laws of pagum or not is an interesting question. Like
salt in chocolate. People like salt in chocolate, but if you put too much salt, it's not any good. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess if that was the edge case, the normal case is a case where
where it's 1 in 10 time.
Where it would be no 10 time, but then it's not Isser Mashu, then it's not an Isser Mashu. It's an Isser Mashu, which does give flavor, but it's a pogem flavor. Anyway, it comes up by Pesach. So let's read. We don't have so much time, and I see that Let's do the Tosfot. I'll read the Tosfot. It's also pretty hard, this Tosfot. So this is the Tosfot in Avodah Zarah. Michlal de Reisha b'noten tam askinim. Yesh hayu mefarshin the kol isur da have b'mashahu. This is what we're talking about. Just to repeat. Our topic now is, if our first topic was what's the connection between the ger not being rude to the ger and learning that a tarovet of two good things is asur, and we came up with several explanations. Now we're talking about whether pagum is a relevant factor in mashu, and that's what we talked about in the Rosh. And now we're seeing yesh hayu mefarshim the kol isur da have b'mashahu lo amrinan beinoten tam lifgam muter. That was the Rashba. Daha ein lecha tam batel yoter me mashu be'elef. You don't have anything worse than mashu be'elef, and yet it's asur. Who hadin noten tam lifgam. Actually, it's a little easier than the Rosh so far. Umefaresh kan michlal. Umefaresh kan michlal did noten tam askinan. De lekach muter b'she'en bahanato b'noten tam. Since we're talking about noten tam, and that's muter, she'ein b'hanato noten tam, when there's no hana, di b'mashu afilu lifgam asur. But if it would be b'mashu, then even if it would be pagum, it's asur. I think he's repeating himself. Of course, sort of. Ve'ein raya mikan delo, and there's no proof, but there is actually no proof from here. You know, he's arguing on the Rashba now. Ve'ein raya mikan. By the way, how do I know it's the Rashba? Because the Beit Yosef here in Orach Chaim, Taf Mem Zayin, quotes them and brings the Rashba. I believe he brings the Rashba here. But where were we? Ve'ein raya mikan delo dayek hacha ella mid maflig b'seifa. So the seifa of the Mishnah, of our Mishnah, distinguish between giving flavor, good flavor, and not giving good flavor. Michlal dereisha b'noten tam dehaki ayru masnis. Okay, that I don't really understand. V'od demashahu min b'mino ein hatam batel klal. And that's the second reason that the Rosh brought. V'od demashahu min b'mino ein hatam batel. It's never batel when it's min b'mino. If it's an iser mino in a mutter mino, it's never the flavor is ein tam batel michlal da'afilu be'elef keven tam shaveh aval lifgam hatam batel. But if it's lifgam, by definition, it has to be batel. In other words, when in the mino, it's asur because it's, you know, in mashu it's the same flavor, so it's not batel. How could it be batel? Because it's just adding to the flavor. But when it's pogem, it could be batel because it's pogem. It's a different flavor. It could be batel. So therefore, you could say that iser mashu, you can't learn from min b'mino or from any iser mashu to a case of pogem. Ubachametz v'pesach l'sfarim digarse. All right. Ubachametz v'pesach afagav d'shelo b'mino iser b'mashu. On chametz v'pesach, if it's lo b'mino, it's aser b'mashu. In other words, your chametz falls into your soup, it's aser b'mashu. Afal pi shat tam batel, even though you can't taste it. Mekom makom ein le'esor tam lifgam. But if that chametz causes a bad flavor, and you shouldn't forbid it, why? Shelo yiyeh tafel chamur min ha'ikar. That the tafel shouldn't be yoter chamur mi'ikar. The shelo b'mino eino asur ela atu mino, because lo mino is only asur because of mino. There's the whole concept of Pesach is that they assured it because of min. She'ena mino is asur because of mino. And in mino, we just got through showing that it should be mutter. So also in ena mino. Elavada ain't he look the kol noten tam lifgam mutter. So he wants to say that if it's that if it's pagum, it essentially becomes like a different min, and therefore it's batel. Maybe I didn't explain it very well, but let's say that Tosfot and the Rosh agree, and that's what the Beis Yosef says here. He says, "V'ken data." Here he quotes the Rosh, and he says, "V'ken data Tosfot lahatir noten tam lifgam afilu b'davar she'isuro b'mashu." V'gam Mordechai ketav v'per kol shah she'Rebbe Yehuda what is this? Mi Paris, I guess. Hora halacha l'maaseh lahatir noten tam lifgam b'Pesach ve'evi kama gedolim shesovrim ken va'af al pi shegam ken hevi gedolim shecholkim b'davar mekom makom rabu amatirim ala Israel. So here he says you can be matir. Va'Rashba katav b'tshuva. So the Rashba is not in the Torah by it; it's in a tshuva. V'zeh l'shona. Kol she'isuro b'mashu ein hefresh bein noten tam lifgam lenoten l'shvach. She'ein matiri noten tam lifgam b'mashe isuran b'mashu. She'ein machmat she'eino machmat tamo, because the whole reason that it's forbidden when it's a mashu is not because of its tam, ela machmat chomer isuro, because of the severity of its isur. V'kevan sheken malanu, what does it matter to us? Imhu lishvach o lifgam ha'ikar isur. There's for sure an isur here, because when they prohibited, just like we said before, when they prohibited mashahu, they didn't care about tam. So therefore, pagam cannot be a heter. So he does not go like the Rashba. He says that you can be lenient for pagum in mashu.
So, Rav Nachum?
Yeah.
So essentially, the Rashba's argument seems to be, right, if I understand correctly, is that in things that are not batel v'mashu, we're not even talking about, the flavor is not a factor anymore, right? We're outside of the case of tam, and so therefore tam lifgam tam lishvat doesn't matter, right? It's not a tam issue, it's something else. And I think the Rosh's and the Tosfot's pushback is it doesn't matter because the thing isn't asur, because the ikar of isur essentially was that you get hana from it, or I'm adding somebody else's words there, but all right, ran in the ran essentially, But whatever it is, it's not an Isur anymore, so there is no question about needing it to be Batel.
Well, wait, who are you saying the name of? The Tosfot or
the
Tosfot
or the Rosh? Essentially, you're saying that, like, you're saying it's not a question of tam. It's not even a question of Isur anymore, though, right? That if something is
right. They're saying it's. I mean, the key word here is this: Paka Isuro. Here. Paka Isuro. That's the key word. It's no longer an Isser, so the Isser so you can't say Asur b'mashu, because Asur b'mashu is only on Isurim, and this is not Asur anymore because either because it's essentially pagum, or because it's pagum in its, or even if it's pagum in its mixture. Yeah, so that's the background. That's the background. Next time, I basically want to do the Shulchan Aruch. Not going to do the Beit Yosef. There's one Bach we'll look at a little bit, but basically we're just going to go through the Shulchan Aruch with some of the interesting commentaries. Do you guys want me to? I mean, I can tell you I can send you a list of which particular shachs and tazes or other things I'll look at. I can send you a list, but you can also, if you find something interesting, you can tell me something. So next time we'll do the Shulchan Aruch. So let me just repeat what we did today. We saw different attempts at connecting connecting the Ra'ui Lager, the not Ra'ui Lager Heter, to things that are essentially good, that just when they mix together have a bad effect. And we saw whether this notion of tam lifgam can help us, can create a heter for things that are asur b'mashu, like birya or chametz Pesach. And just to repeat, notice that this Beis Yosef is in Taf Mem Zayin. That is in Hilchos Pesach. In other words, if you thought it was only by birya, because actually in the Shulchan Aruch he's going to talk about it, but only by birya. And Devar Sheish Matiri. But it also applies to Pesach, as the Beit Yosef brings here. I didn't read all of this Beit Yosef. I recommend you read this Beit Yosef. Tell me if you get any insights, anything more. I'm still bothered by whether I'm still not clear. I'm still not happy so much with the Rosh, but because I'm not sure why the Pakah, the Isser, when it's just because in the Tarot, I can hear it. Maybe I'll write you something about that. Okay, so Laila Tov, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you very much, Laila Tov.
Thank you, Laila Tov.
Don't everybody.